amazing how many people at Bits came up to me. They recognized me from this office hours, and
Yeah.
Most of them were in Europe, so they weren't watching us live since it's depending upon where they are, it'd be pretty late in the day. But they all listen. A lot of them listen to our podcast on YouTube.
Oh.
That was kind of cool. I didn't get as many hi's. I know you like Brent does, and then Erik does because he's recognizable with his tattoos. I kind of blend more in with the crowd. So it was kind of neat.
I'm pretty sure I don't blend in London. Pretty sure.
One funny thing that Richie didn't get to see on Saturday, we skipped the last session. We were just hanging out in the main area, and someone came over to take a picture with the Brent Ozar Unlimited crew, and I forget who else was sitting there, but Pino was there also, maybe one other person, and the guy asked me to take a picture of everyone because he didn't recognize me. I was cracking up. It was so funny. I didn't say anything, of course, because it was so funny.
Hey, nobody, can you take a picture of us with the Brent Ozar team?
Great. Oh, I loved it. Oh, another funny thing, when I was standing with Pino, and someone came up and he recognized him, and then they were talking about something, and Pino likes to talk about Brent a lot, and the guy asked, well, who's that female that works at Brent Ozar Unlimited? And Pino points to me, and he's like, no, that's not the right person. He's all, yeah, Kendra. I was cracking up.
Still thinks Kendra works here.
Oh, well.
Not the most up-to-date information on that.
It's only been 2 years. I mean, come on.
Oh, I thought these were great.
Oh, man.
Uh-oh, still got jet lag?
Oh, I'm going to have jet lag for like 3 months.
My jet lag was surprisingly easy this time around. I was surprised.
Yeah, because you didn't have any.
Oh, that's what you're saying. You didn't go anywhere.
Right.
I was wrecked on Monday. I pretty much spent all day in bed.
In my busted house, that's where I was.
Oh, yeah. How's that going? Are things still falling apart around you?
Slow. It's just, dealing with the insurance company is just slow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no one wants to give out money. Free money,
Nope.
right? No, everyone hates giving out free money.
And the right amount of money is what we're now fighting with. So.
Oh, what are they thinking? Like, here's $15.
Yeah. Here, go fix your house now. $15.
Go pile up some rocks. That'll work just fine.
All right, we should get started.
No.
Questions?
Going back to bed.
How about
going back to Cali? How about that?
You guys answer.
What?
I'll read the questions. You guys answer them, especially all the replication ones.
Oh, really? Is that how this one's going to go?
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, we'll start off with Narav's question. He has a production database that's 500 gigabytes. He wants to create a clone database with limited data size for developer and testers in local environment. He wants to know how he can achieve this. No third-party software allowed in my company.
Oh, boy. No third-party software. It's almost like they want you to recreate the wheel every day. What an awful place to work. You should get a new job. But on your way to get a new job, you should go look at this blog post by Tom LaRock. He wrote this, he shows you how to go and script out a stats-only copy of your database so that you don't have to use a third-party tool. If you're on a newer version of SQL Server like 2014, I think even like 2012 with one of the service packs, you can use DBCC clone database to get a stats-only clone of your database for developers to use. But at least when I checked it, there were still some security issues around that. Like, if you're okay with your developers seeing the contents of the histogram, there can still be personally identifiable information in there.
Gotcha.
All right. So I think the key word there is developer and tester. And as a developer and tester, I'm probably going to be running some store procedures and looking at data and doing that kind of stuff. That only doesn't really help you that much. No. So my big thing here is that, one, you should have already had your database scripted out, and at least all your prime data scripted out as well. If you're not doing, and that should be checked into some sort of source control. So if you're not doing that, you're not even at kind of base level yet. You're trying to get way up high on the database, pyramid of needs, and you need to get the bottom. So get that first. And then when you get that, then you could start eyeing out the data that you want to move over. And that probably should be scripted out as well, because at some point you want to refresh all that data. Moving data over from production to development is usually a bad idea, because production doesn't really represent a lot of times the kind of testing that you're going to want to do. Testing, you want to do a lot of oddball things, a lot of strange things, and production data is usually pretty uniform. It's usually pretty good, because everything is going through the application and everything kind of works the way it should. In test, you
don't see a lot of applications, do you?
Listen, I see a lot of stuff, but you don't really see a lot of that. You see the stuff in outliers in production, but the great majority of it is pretty good data, because it's gone through the process of cleaning and whatnot. So you're on a long trek, and if you haven't started your application doing it this manner, it's pretty painful. But once you get there, then you could actually do the automated deployments and automated builds and automated database testing and things of that nature, and you'll start getting really high up on that database pyramid, hierarchy of needs, or whatever that you need to do. But it's hard work. It's all scripting out stuff, and that's really the best thing we have right now, especially if you're not using third-party tools. Sorry.
Yeah, or if you just need to like move chunks of data over, if you're too lazy to script it out, you could use SSIS on another server and just move some new stuff over like every night, so it was fresh for dev. You're still going to run the stuff Richie talked about, where like data might be a little too sanitary and a little bit too easy, but you can always add stuff on top of that as well if you need to test some edge cases.
Yeah, and if you need to automate any of those tests, and those are going to continually be changing as well, and that's not going to help at all. So, yeah, there's no easy answer to this. We've been trying to do this now for well over 15, 20 years, and we still don't have a good answer for it. There's some third-party tools that kind of help, but there's still no panacea and great answer for all this. I feel your pain. I just went through this whole thing this last month of automating database testing and getting everything into scripts and doing all that stuff. So yeah, it's just hard.
All right, let's get that next question up.
All right, Pablo asks, monitoring tool says that the principal weight on a server is soft schedule yield with greater than 70% weights, but when I run who is active during the day, I see so few activity or none. Does it mean that there's a problem, or just few activity?
Right. So just because that makes up 70% of what you're waiting on doesn't mean you're waiting on it all that much. I don't know who your monitoring tool is. It's hard to say. You didn't mention the name of the company that does the monitoring in your question, but a lot of monitoring tools are really bad at showing you what your server is actually waiting on, and if it's like waiting on it a lot. So really monitoring tool dependent. Try to dig into when the server is busy and see if you're actually spending a significant amount of time waiting on anything. Otherwise, you're just kind of sitting there staring at a bored server. So schedule yield is one of those ways where it's like, that's cooperative scheduling. That's, SQL and the OS saying queries are going to run for a little bit. They're going to step off. They're going to go back on the scheduler. There's really not a whole heck of a lot you can do to fix that aside from, I don't know, faster processors or having queries run less often or other goofy things.
Yeah, and then also run SB Blitz first, during the day when you think that you have the highest load. It might be at night that you have this load, although greater than 70%. It's hard to say, but run SB Blitz first, expert mode equal 1, and then at seconds, say 5 minutes, so it's 300, and you might see the soft schedule yield weights there. Running who is active might not capture it, because that's just a moment in time, whereas you need to be able to have something run, and then run again, and then do a diff between the two result sets, like a SB Blitz first can do.
Yeah, it's just that when I see that as being 70% of the weights on the server, I don't think that server is doing a whole heck of a lot else.
Gotcha. All right. So Rick, he said he wanted to be anonymous, but just because you're currently on SQL Server 2005. All right. Yeah, I didn't say the whole names. That's all right. They're finally upgrading to SQL 2017 from 2005. Some people are suggesting applying encryption and compression and who knows what else. Any advice on what to stay away from and what to slowly apply? I mean, are you testing this stuff? I mean, why are you implementing? I like compression, but I'm not going to be implementing encryption unless I need it, because that brings up all sorts of problems.
Yeah, especially, TDE. What kind of encryption? There's like 5 different kinds of encryption now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll come back to that one when Rick gives us some more. I mean, not Rick gives us some more information.
Someone else.
Yeah.
Thomas wants to know if anybody's going to be attending SQL Saturday in Chicago this year.
I think Brent is.
Yeah, maybe. He lives there, but he's moving, so
who knows?
When is it? All right. Narav has another question. What is best method to archiving databases? Because archiving database scripts take a long time when we remove the data from the database.
Are you talking about archiving an entire database or just part of the data? I don't know.
I imagine old historical data.
Okay. I like partitioning for that. Anyone else?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Table partitioning. It's been around a long time, and you now get it with SQL 2016 Service Pack 1, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Even in Standard Edition. So it's been an Enterprise Edition feature since before that.
Yeah, so like definitions of archiving are always funny because I'm never quite sure if it's like we're going to get rid of this whole database, we're just going to take this chunk of data and move it to a different database, or if we're just going to delete this data. So partitioning and even partition views work out fairly well for a lot of that stuff, but not if you're just wholesale deleting data or putting it into a different database, and obviously just some sort of data moving mechanism is the best way to do it. Richie probably knows a few of those.
Yeah, partitioning, as much as I love it, you've got issues, especially when applying queries and or indexes and things like that. It could definitely be an issue when you go ahead. Are they coming after you?
Yeah,
is that me or is that you? I don't know. But it could definitely be an issue when you're doing some query tuning and whatnot, and all of a sudden you're trying to apply an index across the entire table, and then you do your partition swap and you can't do it because the index is going across. So again, they're not aligned with your partitions. So that's a problem with the partition swapping. As far as why your archiving is slow, I would take a look at your indexes and try to figure out why those queries are particularly slow. Is there something that you're missing? Is there do some perf tuning on your archiving queries and see what's going on there.
All right. New York City sounds like London, by the way. There were always sirens. It was never police. It was always ambulances. All right. Erik asks, can you combine a failover cluster instance and an availability group? Say you have an failover instance with an availability group for reporting. That answer is yes, but I've never done it, so I don't know how complicated it is. Do you have any info, Erik, on it?
Yeah, me and all my availability group experience.
I'm the only one at the company that has done availability groups in production, and I've never combined the two, but I'm fairly confident that this is possible.
Yeah, no, you can totally do it. We've had clients in the past who have combined them, but it's as far as HADR topography goes, it's pretty complicated, especially if you're going to stick a reporting layer on top of it.
As a matter of fact, Brent has done it with some past clients that I know are public names. I'm not going to mention them here just in case there's any kind of issue, but I know when we do the HADR stuff with clients and we talk about availability groups,
right.
In there it shows some pretty complicated setups that do combine the two technologies. All right. Yeah. Anon asks, and I think that's anonymous, have any of you used Subversion version control with SQL? If so, how easy do you think it is to integrate when there is no current version control? We have a lot of SSIS packages and changes.
Richie, take it away.
Yeah, Richie.
What kind of version control are we talking about? Yeah, I've used version control with pretty much every version SQL Server that I've dealt with, even starting from just basic scripts. We go and check into VSS, Visual Source Safe for those old guys, and then all the way up through TFS, and now pretty much use GitHub.
Have you used Subversion though?
I used Subversion. I didn't like it at all.
Okay. Yeah, we used Subversion a few jobs ago, and I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, there was a really old version when I first joined up, DVCS or something like that, and that was a nightmare. But yeah, so I've used a lot of different source control kind of stuff. Yes, you can get it into SSIS. I think with SSIS, as I recall with TFS, there was an issue where only one person can work on it really at once because of the merging stuff wasn't as easy because it's all one big XML file. And yeah, and merging it just wasn't easy at all. It's not like you working with C# text files and doing all that stuff. And merging is fairly simple. Merging everything together when you got one version here from one person, another version here, and you got to bring it together. That was pretty difficult from what I recall with SSIS. So we had a rule that only one person can edit SSIS at one time. I'm not quite sure if with the newer Git type stuff, because I never used Git with SSIS, if that's still the case, but I'm assuming so because the file format still hasn't changed and whatnot. So I say go ahead and throw it out there, and it's really easy to get things in. It's just a matter of getting your team and your workflow optimized as far as getting everybody up to speed and things like that. There's no downside to version control.
Hopefully it's not still a single-threaded process then.
Oh gosh, TFS was, when it first released, was the worst. It was just so bad. So bad.
All right. Tom asks, he's currently on SQL 2016 Enterprise, 40 cores with 1 terabyte of memory. I mean, yay.
Right?
I mean, who was it
Jealous.
really, right?
Yeah.
I'll gladly take that off your hands.
Yeah.
For an autograph and a screwdriver.
What are the best settings for max degree of parallelism? He's currently set to 8, and then cost threshold for parallelism currently set to 8.
You spent all that money on a server and no money on training or a PBA. What happened?
I like his settings personally, but
Yeah, I'd stick with those. I wouldn't change those one bit unless I observed some sort of issue.
yeah. And if I was going to change anything where I wanted to affect max stop or cost threshold for parallelism, I would do it at the query level. I would keep your server settings as they are. At SQL Bits conference last week, in somebody's session, it was Aaron Stelato's query store session, the topic of cost threshold for parallelism came up, and she asked the audience, who sets theirs to 50 or some number around there, not 5. And you shouldn't have it set to 5. And then half the people raise their hand, and then she asked, who sets it to a different number based upon what you see as the workload, examining the plan cache, and half the people raise their hand. That for the other half, which in my head I'm calling BS, because there's no way that many people are doing this. Because I don't know that you need to do that kind of work. I know that there's a blog article that was in the Slack in our company chat room yesterday about setting cost threshold parallelism to a value based upon what you see is the workload. But I'm a fan of setting it to 50 and then adjusting specific queries with the the option query, whatever it is, query hint or query option, whatever it is. You can change max degree of parallelism at the query level. So I don't think that you should change server settings because these are generally good.
So you're okay with max stop at 8?
Or a 40-core server.
40 core?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I haven't gone higher than that. All right. Steve asks, he's moving a batch of reports from 2014 to 2016. They were originally developed for 2008. He has serious performance problems with one report. What's the best resource of SSRS performance issues? I wouldn't even, reporting. I wouldn't even think that the issues in reporting services. I would be suspicious of the cardinality estimator since they were developed in 2008 and you're going from 2014 to 2016. Oh, but 2014 and 2016 is going to have the same cardinality estimator if you upgrade your compatibility level. So I would be looking into compatibility level here if it's suddenly slow. But from 2014 to 2016, what is the database engine version? That's what I need to know. Is it 2014 SSRS, database engine's lower? I'd be suspicious of the cardinality estimator.
Yeah, or possibly you just got a bad plan in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would not be suspicious of reporting services being the culprit. I would look into performance tuning the actual query.
SSRS is always a bad plan. Get Tableau.
All right. Dorian asks, what is the best way to move a 1 terabyte database from a standalone server to an availability group cluster to minimize downtime?
Unique up on it. Oh, wait, that's not it.
What? Okay.
Postgres.
My
scan
favorite is
snapshots.
restores and then apply transaction logs. So do a full backup and a restore, differential as you get closer, and then apply transaction logs. And you can make that switcheroo within seconds if you're fully scripted. So you're making sure that you're applying transaction logs. So you can use database mirroring or log shipping to do this. You don't have to do it manually. But yeah, you want to do some kind of method which allows you to do restoring of transaction logs. That way you're mostly up to date once the maintenance window hits, and then you just got to apply a final transaction log.
Yeah, for stuff like that, I've done either log shipping or mirroring. Either one is fine. I liked mirroring just because it was a little bit easier to manage, and I could keep it in asynchronous mode up until I needed to switch over, then flip it to sync, and boom, I'm done. I moved about, I don't know, 15 or so terabytes in one night with that one, so that worked out well for me. So I would do that.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I know?
No, it's a good solution. It's really easy to switch it over synchronous mode, fail over, and boom, done. 2 commands.
Yeah.
You just make sure that getting from async to sync can take a little bit of time depending upon how busy your system is.
Right. But if you wait till you're in a lull, you'll be generally be okay. Or if you're on a SAN and you can take SAN snapshots, or you can do something else that is a pretty quick snapshot and move and remount of the data. That's sometimes pretty good too. It really depends on how busy your system is and what your maintenance windows look like. I would assume that you would get some kind of maintenance window to flip over to a brand new set of hardware like that. But again, what do I know? It's a crazy world out there. People are like, I love when people ask questions on Stack Exchange and they're like, I have this problem with a thing that doesn't work. And you're like, oh, well, here's a pretty easy solution. They're like, I'm not allowed to use temp tables. And you're like,
yeah.
Where do you live? What's going on in your life? Are you on Oracle? I don't know.
All right. Ronnie asks, is there a way in SQL 2012 without running Profiler in the background to identify tables that a specific login has accessed?
Audit.
Tell us more. One word isn't sufficient.
SQL Server audit. You can set it to I think hit a login, like a single login or a single set of tables or all logins or all tables. And you can just figure out who's run a select or insert or update and delete on them. I'm not promising that it's pain free and everything's going to work quickly and nicely and that you're going to make a lot of friends by turning that on, but you could do it. And I think that would be kind of your best shot.
All right. Tom asks, with always on, do agent jobs exist on all nodes in case the primary fails? Do they all run simultaneously? I'm going to have to go.
40 cores, 1 terabyte, an AG.
Yes.
No one. All right.
All right. So the first part is always on. You're talking about availability groups, but that also covers failover cluster instances. So failover cluster instance is part of always on, and yes, the agent jobs exist in the instance, and that fails over. But you're really asking about availability groups here. Do the agent jobs exist on all nodes? And that answer is no. You are required to maintain those other replicas. Now, what we did at my last job was pretty nifty. So we didn't have to pay attention to all these other replicas. We had another server, which had to be licensed, of course. That was the job scheduler. And so we used the availability group listener to connect to wherever the primary was. Didn't matter. It could be in San Diego. It could be at a disaster recovery site. We used the availability group listener, and that follows wherever the primary goes. So that was a nifty way of getting away from having to keep all the jobs up to date on all the other replicas. So having another server that's just responsible for running jobs for availability group databases.
I want to say that Brent has a post that I'll throw in the chat in a minute. It's called using SQL Agent as an app server. And it's kind of like talks about a similar concept where, you just have that one SQL server that sits out there. All it does is run SQL Agent, and you can just point those jobs anywhere you want.
Right. And then the thing to note, if you aren't going to use this other server, like we mentioned, and you want, because you don't have the licenses for this other server, and you are going to have the jobs all in sync across all replicas, in order to make sure that they run on failover, each job needs to have an if statement. Am I the primary replica? And if so, then I run the job step. If not, I just bail out. So they all have this exact same job schedule. They're all enabled. They all have the same job step, but you just need to do a quick check. Am I the primary replica? And if not, bail out. So yeah, they all will run simultaneously, but all the other replicas, all the secondaries won't actually do any work.
Yeah, and if you want to see a pretty good example of jobs that take those kind of precautionary steps before they run, go look at the source code on Ola Hallengren's scripts, because all those will do certain checks to make sure that the database is either the primary or not read-only, and some other stuff that, you know, makes running maintenance tasks difficult, especially if they're writable.
All right, Mahesh asks, is there a way to limit the memory use by query other than resource governor? When I do SP who is active and I see a couple of queries use huge chunk of memory like 23 gigabytes and causes resource semaphore waits for all other queries.
Ooh-wee. Yes. Well, if you're on SQL Server 2012 or up, well, I think like 2012 SP3 or up, you can use the max grant % hint, and you can cap at the query level how much memory, what percentage of memory query is allowed to use. By default, it can ask for 25% of your max server memory, so you can use max grant % to bring it down lower. If you are on a version of SQL Server prior to 2012, or you're uncomfortable with that hint for some reason, you would just have to get in and do some necessary query and index tuning to make that query ask for less of a memory grant.
And if you can't modify the queries, you can add a plan guide on top of it to apply what he just said. But that gets a little tricky.
Or you could just stab them.
Or just use resource governor. I know the question says other than resource governor, but that's one of the reasons to use resource governor.
That's what it's for.
It might not be an enterprise edition.
Oh, that's right. Gotcha. All right. Nestor asks, do you switch roles for the final move, or do you just remove log shipping or mirroring? Well, the thing is, so it's talking about upgrading from from a standalone over to availability group. The thing is, once you fell over, or you've restored to the other server, you can't go back. So yeah, you just drop them. They are gone. There's no reason keeping mirroring or log shipping in place anymore.
No, but I'll usually leave that other server online for a bit, just in case I do need to say we're like abandoning this move, this upgrade, whatever data is there. We'll try to manage loss on, and we're going to go back to the old one because just some crap went wrong.
Yeah, and the upgrades I've done, the abandoning our upgraded server occurs only in the maintenance window. So maybe we're 4 hours into a maintenance window. Maybe our maintenance window was supposed to be shorter, but we kept troubleshooting, and then we abandoned it and went to the old server. So there's no data loss because we kept the system down while we did this. And if we have to abandon it the next day, that just never was part of our plan. We would always just keep troubleshooting and fix the issue, whatever it took.
Smoke tests are a beautiful thing.
All right, Thomas asks, I have some databases in a cluster. I'm moving them to an availability group. Can I set up mirroring from the cluster to one of the instances, failover when I'm ready to migrate, and then add them to the availability group? Sure.
Sounds right to me.
Yep, definitely. He wasn't sure about taking databases in a cluster and mirroring them. I've done tons of mirroring with failover cluster instances, and availability groups, they're all separate technologies. Just think if you could do mirroring and availability group, probably, but that wasn't the question anyway. All right, some of these I'm skipping because they're too long. All right, so JH asks, in a 2-node cluster, server 1 is active, server 2 is passive. If server 1 gets rebooted and server 2 then becomes active, do all connections transactions get persisted via clustered MSDTC or other cluster process? So no connections, transactions get hard dropped, or they get hard dropped. You get hard drop because that instance is coming down. It is severed. So you need to have mechanism in your applications to retry queries once the instance comes up on the other node.
Yeah, that'll definitely sever whatever connections you have. If the shutdown is kind of graceful, then some of them might do okay. But in general, if you have a hard stop on that server, whatever was in flight is not gonna survive.
All right, and then I did see a question. I don't remember who asked it, but someone wanted to know from Richie why he didn't like Subversion.
Oh, personal preference. Just didn't like it.
So what do you like?
I was just about to get there. Thank you very much for the softball. I'm a big Git guy these days. Pretty much Git's the only thing.
How can you like Git? Oh my goodness, I can't stand it. It's too complicated.
Wait, what do you like, Tara?
Well, if I have to pick, I'm going to pick nothing. I'd rather not have source control. I'm kidding. I was fine. I was okay with TFS at my last job. I thought that was pretty fancy. Learning curve I thought was much lower than GitHub. I cannot, if I have to do anything in the Blitz stuff, it is going to be a very painful day. I'm going to need some Motrin. I'm going to need a cocktail, and I have to go through the article again on what the steps I have to do, because it is just too many steps.
I'm in it all day long, so
you guys use it more often, yeah.
It's easy for us. The other thing is that if Git is not an option or something that you guys don't want to go to, I like Mercurial as well. They're very close to one another, but definitely I would go Mercurial or Git. I'm fine with these days. TFS, it's okay. It's just, it doesn't have that giddiness where you could work everything locally. Everything's kind of shared up top in the server. There's just a lot of power when I could work on something local, pull it down, merge it myself, and then push it back up or rebase it or whatever I need to do. And everything just kind of works. The branching is so much easier than TFS. For the branching alone, Git wins for me.
Gotcha. All right, that's it. We're all done for the day. We will see you guys next week.
Time to go keep drinking.